Well, there are some newer people here. Our Mridanga player took off. No, it's okay. It's okay. He's got something to do. Do you know who? You're a harmonium player here. Do you know who is Uddhava? No. You'd like to know, right? Yeah. His picture is on the right of the screen. Krishna is seated in a raised seat. Uddhava is clutching his feet. Uddhava is the dearmost associate of Krishna outside of Vrindavan. He's Krishna's cousin, like Arjuna is also cousin, first cousin. And he was Krishna's constant associate from the time that Krishna entered Mathura until Krishna left this world. Constant associate. Constant associate. Later in this section of the 11th canto, Krishna says to Uddhava that you're more dear to me than Arjuna, than Bhishma Dev, even the goddess of fortune, even my own self, you're more dear to me. So he's a very special person in Krishna's pastimes. So Uddhava, presented a series of questions to Krishna just before Krishna's departure, knowing that Krishna would depart. And the essence of his question was, please describe how to become free from excessive material attachment because it blocks my ability to understand you and to know you. So Canto 11, chapters 7, 8, 9, 10, and now into 11, almost halfway through 11, it's the same topic. Only it's moved from just detachment into bhakti, because the fruit of detachment, when it's done properly, is attachment to Krishna. So Krishna is in the process of describing, based upon Uddhava's question, who are those that are fit for offering things to you? Because Krishna has described the importance of detachment from the fruits of work. If you can't fix your mind completely on Krishna, to make the mind pure enough to think properly of Krishna, the mind has to become cleansed. And the cleansing is the contamination is attachment to the enjoying spirit, enjoying separately from Krishna's spirit. And so the antidote for that is two things: offering the fruits of your work to Krishna, and hearing about Krishna. So Uddhava wants to know, who are those persons who have that situation, that are fit, their offerings are fit to be received by you. So there's 28 qualities of a devotee, and then there's a few qualities, two more qualities that are qualities of a pure devotee. So we're going through that list of the 28, and we got as far as number 10. 9, Danta. Danta means repelled by sinful activities and controls the senses. This requires steady concentration and a cautious mentality. Now, reading the BBT commentary just now. Number 10 of 28, Mridu. Materialistic person will always see people as friends or enemies, and thus will sometimes justify cruel or small-minded behavior in order to subdue his opponents. Since a devotee has taken shelter of Lord Krishna, he does not consider anyone his enemy and is never disturbed by the tendency or to desire or enjoy the suffering of others. Thus he is mridu, which means gentle and sublime. Mridu. So the absence of get-back mentality, retaliation, leaves one gentle and sublime. Number 11, shuchi. The devotee never touches that which is impure or improper, and simply by remembering such a pure devotee, one is freed from the tendency to sin because of his perfect behavior. A devotee is called shuchi, or pure. 12. Akinchana. A devotee is free from possessiveness and is not eager to enjoy or renounce anything, since he considers everything to be Lord Krishna's property. Akinchana. Non-possessive, having no material possessions. Not a lording it over mentality or seeing that things should be used for Krishna's service. Akinchana. Number 13. Aniha. Aniha. A devotee never acts on his own behalf, but rather for the service of Lord Krishna. He is therefore aloof from ordinary worldly affairs. Aniha. Aloof from ordinary worldly affairs. Mita Bhuk. Don't eat too much. A devotee accepts material sense objects only as far as necessary to keep himself healthy and fit in Lord Krishna's service. He is therefore not entangled by his sense activities and never injures his self-realization. When necessary, a devotee can give up anything for Lord Krishna's service, but he does not accept or reject anything for his personal prestige. Mita Bhuk. Shanta. Peaceful, not disturbed. Those trying to exploit the Lord's creation are always disturbed. A devotee, however, is detached from such pointless activities and understands sense gratification to be diametrically opposed to his self-interest. Being always engaged according to the Lord's desire, he remains shanta, peaceful. Number 16, sthira. Sthira. Remembering that Lord Krishna is the basis of everything, a devotee does not become fearful or impatient. It's like steadiness of mind. And symptoms of unsteadiness are fearfulness or impatient, restless, turbulent. Sthira is the opposite. Mat Sharana. This is, we discussed this yesterday and before. It's the of the 28. It's the principal one. All the other 27 follow behind this one. This is mama, and the other are babies. Mat Sharanam. A devotee does not take pleasure in anything except serving Lord Krishna and is constantly attentive to the execution of his duties. A devotee knows that only Lord Krishna can protect him and engage him in useful work. So, taking shelter in Krishna's Mat Eka Sharana. Muni. Number 18. A devotee is thoughtful and, through intelligent contemplation, avoids becoming distracted from his spiritual advancement. By intelligence, he is freed from doubts about Lord Krishna and confronts all problems in life with steady Krishna consciousness. Muni, thoughtful. I remember hearing Prabhupada, same root, dhatu, monishinam, the devotee is thoughtful. You can't be, not a mental speculator thoughtful, but thoughtful. You contemplate things carefully. Apramata. There's pramata and there's apramata. Apramata, one who forgets the Supreme Lord, is more or less crazy. But a devotee remains sane by offering his activities to Lord Krishna. Apramata, not crazy. That's a compliment, huh? Gabhir Atma. Gabhir Atma. A devotee merges into the ocean of Krishna consciousness. His own consciousness becomes deeper and deeper. Ordinarily, superficial persons hover on the mental, material platform. They cannot fathom the extent of devotee's awareness. So deep awareness, Gabhir Atma. Dhritiman. Dhritiman. By controlling the urge of the tongue and genitals, the devotee remains steady and patient and does not impulsively change his position. Sounds like a nice list. Wanna win, huh? Jitta Shad Guna. By spiritual knowledge, a devotee is able to conquer the pushings of hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, old age, and death. That's the Shadguna. And Jitta Shadguna is they've conquered them. Krishna's name is Ajita, one who's not conquered, but Jitta is one who is conquered. The Shadguna, material tribulations. So hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, old age, and death. Amani, a devotee is not puffed up. Amanina manadena, kirtaniya sadahari, amani. A devotee is not puffed up. And even if he is famous, he does not take such fame very seriously. Mana da. Hey, that's the same as amanina manadena. Mana da. That means, so you give respect. Mana da. Da means you give. And mana is you give thoughts, you give respectful gestures to others. So amanina manadena. Not expecting any respect from others, always offering respect to others. Kalya. A devotee is expert in making people understand the truth of Krishna consciousness. Number 26. The list is almost done. Maitri. Maitra. Maitra? Friend. Friend. A devotee does not cheat anyone by encouraging them in the bodily concept of life. Rather, by his missionary work, a devotee is the true friend of everyone. Karunika. Compassion. It's one of the items that's in Kapila Dev's description of a devotee. Tik tik shava karunika. A devotee tries to make people sane, and thus is most merciful. He is para dukkha dukhi, or one who is unhappy to see the unhappiness of others. 28. Kavi. Kavi means poet, poetic. A devotee is expert in studying the transcendental qualities of Lord Krishna and is able to show the harmony and compatibility of the Lord's apparently contradictory qualities. This is possible through expert knowledge of the absolute nature of the Lord. Lord Chaitanya is softer than a rose and harder than a thunderbolt. But these opposing qualities can easily be understood in terms of the Lord's transcendental nature and purpose. One who is always able to understand the truth of Krishna consciousness without opposition or confusion is called Kavi, or most learned. Okay, that's the 28. Now here's a whole page more. The position of those on the spiritual path can be understood in terms of their development of these qualities mentioned above. Ultimately, the most important quality is Mameka Sharana, right? Taking shelter of Lord Krishna. Since the Lord can award all good qualities to his sincere devotee. In the lowest stage of devotional service, one acts with a desire to enjoy sense gratification, but at the same time tries to offer the fruits to the Lord. This stage is called Karma Mishra Bhakti. Karma Mishra Bhakti. Bhakti that's mixed with karma. Karma Mishra Bhakti. As one gradually purifies himself in devotional service, he becomes detached through knowledge and gains relief from anxiety. In this stage, he becomes attached to transcendental knowledge, and therefore this stage is called Jnana Mishra Bhakti. Or devotional service to Lord Krishna with the desire to enjoy the fruits of transcendental knowledge. But because pure love for Krishna is actually the greatest happiness and the natural position of the living entity, a sincere devotee gradually overcomes his desire to enjoy sense gratification and knowledge and comes to the stage of pure devotional service, which is devoid of personal desire. Na karmani tyajet yogi karma bischajate hi saha. The yogi should not give up his work, but should rather cultivate detachment, by which his material activities will automatically vanish. In other words, one should continue to perform one's prescribed duties, even imperfectly, if one is sincere about advancing in Krishna consciousness. Then by the strength of Bhakti Yoga, his activities will gradually be transformed into pure devotional service. I'm eagerly waiting to hear what's going to be said about pure devotional service, because these are preliminary. It's qualities of a devotee, or qualities of one who's invested in bhakti, potency. But then when that becomes fully matured, the pure devotee coming up. There are innumerable examples of fruitive workers, mental speculators, and materialistic devotees who became perfect by the strength of devotional service. By rendering loving service to Krishna, one automatically experiences the greatest pleasure of life and is endowed with perfect knowledge. There is nothing lacking in the process of pure devotional service, and there is no need for any extraneous endeavor to acquire sense pleasure or philosophical speculation, philosophical satisfaction. One must be completely convinced that simply by serving Krishna, one will get all perfection in life. Now that's faith, and faith doesn't come just like, hey, I should have some faith, so you just snap your fingers and there it is. Not like that. It is a gradually evolving process by hearing, purification that comes from hearing, understanding something, at least a little bit, applying that something, acting in knowledge, getting some realization, feeling further faith growing in that source and the knowledge, and hearing again, and so forth. And gradually faith matures. By acting in knowledge, one increases in faith as a byproduct. But because pure love for Krishna is actually the greatest happiness and the natural position of living entity, a sincere devotee gradually overcomes his desire to enjoy sense gratification and knowledge and comes to the stage of pure devotional service, which is devoid of personal desire. Na karmani tyajet yogi karma bis tyajate hi saha. The yogi should not give up his work, but rather should cultivate detachment, by which his material activities will even imperfectly. If one is sincere about advancing in Krishna consciousness, then by the strength of Bhakti Yoga, his activities will gradually be transformed into pure, loving service. Now there's that, it kind of rolls off the end of your tongue very easily, but there seems like you cover a lot of distance in a few words, because it's a lot of distance. No, gradually, it's a very relative term. How long is gradually? Gradually is gradually, depends. But, the main thing to take from that is faith that this procedure, this process of bhakti is going to take me to the goal. I just remain faithful and steadfast. As explained by Srila Rupa Goswami in Upadesha Amrita, a devotee who has not yet developed the good qualities mentioned above, all 28 of them, but nevertheless sincerely endeavoring for Krishna consciousness, should receive the mercy of superior Vaishnavas. One should not necessarily accept intimate association with such an aspirant to pure devotional service. But one should be confident that by chanting the holy name of Krishna, such a person will eventually attain all perfection. One can imagine the beauty of a society filled with saintly persons, as described in these verses. The wonderful Krishna conscious qualities mentioned above are the basis of a peaceful and prosperous society. And if everyone takes to the loving service of Lord Krishna, then certainly the present atmosphere of fear, violence, lust, greed, and insanity can be replaced by a celestial situation in which all leaders and citizens will be happy. The essential point here, the essential points, there's two. Mam Sharana, one should take full shelter of Lord Krishna, and Mam Bhajeta, one should worship the Lord through authorized process. In this way, the entire world can become Sattama, or most perfect. So that's it for the BBT purport. In looking ahead, maybe like 20 pages of commentary from here and there and there and here and there, having to do with the fact that this is a very important subject. And it's 4 verses describing who is a devotee. I mean, the answer that Lord Chaitanya gave was really simple. This is more than, this is very elaborate. You know the story. Anyone not know the story? Lord Chaitanya explaining who is a devotee. You know the story? Yeah. No. Every year, the devotees would come from all over to attend Rath Yatra, just like today, on Oak Tree Road, and the rain stopped, at least for now. So when the devotees would come for Rath Yatra, they would stay, because it was around the beginning of the rainy season, so they would stay. You know, good excuse to stay in Puri with Lord Chaitanya, because it's the rainy season, we stay in Puri. And at the end of 4 months, they would go see, in groups, they would go see Lord Chaitanya, because it was, several hundred people, 400 or 500 people. Not thousands, but still a lot of people. And they would, go see Lord Chaitanya and take some instruction from him. So in one of those exchanges, the residents of Kulina Gram, specifically headed by Satyaraj Khan, asked, we're attached householders. We don't know what is the goal of life and how to achieve it. Can you please describe? So Lord Chaitanya said, they asked the same question 3 years in a row. And the first year he gave the most broad, simple definition possible, and then the next intermediate, and then the next top stages of bhakti, or who is a devotee. So Lord Chaitanya said, your duty as a householder is 2 things. Chant Hare Krishna as much as possible, as constantly as possible. And the second is to serve the Vaishnavas. So then they asked, who is a Vaishnava? And Lord Chaitanya said, anyone who chants Krishna's name once, he's a Vaishnava. That means their devotional life has begun. Next year, same question, Lord Chaitanya said, those who have received initiation in the chanting of the holy name, they're a Vaishnava. Of course, there's many things in between those two. And then the third year, same question. He said, well, just by seeing that person, your Krishna consciousness awakens. And that's the topmost stage. Mahabhagavata Vaishnava is one you just see, and bhakti awakens. Which happened in many cases by a person seeing Lord Chaitanya. Of course, some other people were inimical, and that's not what happened. But just by seeing him, bhakti can awaken. So, yeah. You got what was the path I was following. The importance of, I can't remember exactly, the importance of hearing about the qualities of a devotee. In one sense, it's spiritually purifying simply by the fact of hearing the glorification of a devotee. Because hearing the glorification of Krishna is fantastic, and hearing the glorification of devotee is even more fantastic, because Lord Krishna says so. Because more dear to me than myself is my devotee. So glorify the devotee of Krishna. Krishna's more pleased than hearing about his own glories. So it's beneficial, spiritually beneficial, to hear about the qualities of a devotee. and it's meant to bring inspiration to us to also become devoted, because it's a sign that Krishna is pleased. So let's continue. Yeah, what I'm not going to do is, Bhaktisiddhanta has done the same thing, which is he went through all 28 qualities, listed them, described them, so I'm not going to continue with that. The concluding, this is his purport. One who fully engages in unalloyed devotional service of the Lord is expected to develop all these transcendental qualities. In the beginning, the devotee should cultivate the limbs of devotional service while continuing to form duties of his occupation according to the prescribed rules in the scriptures. Clear? As the devotee becomes fixed in devotional service and freed from material desires, he can give up these regulations so that he can intensify his engagement on the spiritual platform. Thus, he will gradually become a genuinely saintly person. Krishna consciousness has nothing to do with material enjoyment and renunciation. The concepts that I am the enjoyer and I renounce something only apply to those who are in the bodily conception of life. The devotee thinks nothing is mine because everything is owned and controlled by the Lord. So in other words, this is just stepping back from the big topic. The question that's being responded to in different ways in different stages is Uddhava's question: how to get on the other side of undue attachment to the temporary, because it makes my mind unable to constantly think of you and understand you. There's obstacles blocking me. So messages of detachment are there, but the detachment is incomplete. Detachment from material is incomplete without knowing who you are. And knowing who you are is incomplete without knowing who you are in relation to Krishna. It always remains, less than complete, and thus not bringing full satisfaction. That was the situation with Vyasa. He had compiled all the Vedas, and he knew the Vedas, but he was still not feeling satisfied. And the answer was he hadn't sufficiently glorified Krishna. So, detaching oneself from material things, or the flip side, trying to be the enjoyer of material things, are meant for those in the bodily conception of life, becoming freed from the unwanted things. But then there's a spontaneous stage that follows the regulative stage. And the spontaneous stage, because attachment to Krishna is perfectly there, then those who are followers of the bhakti process, they may come to a stage where the strictness of prohibiting their senses contacting sense objects may relax, because their senses aren't going to go to sense objects in the mood of enjoyment anymore, because the mind is no longer contaminated. The intelligence is no longer splayed out and misdirected. That's the advanced stage. It doesn't mean that persons will start doing any old thing, and that's just fine because they're on the spontaneous platform, but they're not obliged by the regulations of bhakti. We don't have a bridle like a horse with a bit in his teeth and reins. So they don't have that. But they're in the spontaneous position. They're following because their life is for Krishna's pleasure, and they're not going to go away from doing things for Krishna's pleasure. They're just not going to do that. That's the spontaneous stage. In Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur's commentary, he doesn't go through the list of all 28, but he does most of them. And after doing that, his commentary reads, a pure devotee who possesses the above mentioned 28 qualities is understood to have attained the perfection of life. Well, since we can readily say we haven't achieved the perfection of life, we can be a little bit relieved and not feeling guilty or bad about ourselves because we haven't achieved perfection of life yet. So we don't have all these qualities. He no longer has any desire for liberation by merging into the existence of the Lord. In the beginning, one cultivates devotional service mixed with karma, and then one progresses to the practice of devotional service mixed with jnana. The stage of perfection, however, is characterized by being devoid of karma and jnana. This is called Atmarama, or Shanta Bhakta. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 3.134, it is said, in this Dwarkadam, I am being attracted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who is personified spiritual bliss. Simply by seeing him, I am feeling great happiness. Oh, I have wasted so much time trying to become self-realized through impersonal cultivation. This is the cause for lamentation. Shukadev Goswami has said, being attracted by the qualities of Sri Hari, I heard Srimad Bhagavatam from my father. Now, just pause for a moment. There's another paragraph. What does that mean? Or what are we to understand from that? He's not striving for liberation. He's there. He's not striving for Brahman realization. He's there. He has no attraction for anything material. And in fact, nothing. He's not like impersonal, but he has Brahman realization. But he became attracted to the qualities of Krishna. So much so, he wanted to hear again and again, and hear it again and again, and hear it again and again, and speak it again and again. Hear from his father and speak it. The topics of Krishna. So the punchline is, therefore the qualities and activities, etc. of Krishna Katha is not material. Because Shukadev doesn't have any attraction for anything material, but boy does he have attraction for this. So what does that mean? He has attraction for transcendental, and Krishna's qualities are transcendental. So hearing Krishna's qualities helps one get to that position. The cultivation of knowledge is neglected by those engaged in the process of devotional service. This is Vishwanath gives Rupa Goswami's definition of bhakti. Any one of our persons in the room here know what that verse is in Sanskrit? The definition of bhakti by Rupa Goswami? Can you speak a little louder? So, with no attraction, or leaving aside anya abhilash shunyam jnana karma dyanavratam, eliminating jnana and karma attraction. That's the standard, beginning standard for devotional service. As indicated in verse 32, this is the pure devotional service. A pure devotee of the Lord is fully aware of the pious advantages of executing duties within the varnashram system, and he is simultaneously aware of the harmful mistake of neglecting such duties. Still, having full faith in the Supreme Personality Godhead, a devotee gives up all ordinary social and religious duties and engages fully in devotional service. He knows that Lord Krishna is the ultimate source of everything, and that all perfection comes from Lord Krishna alone. There's a lot of symmetry in Bhagavad Gita's message and what we're hearing here. How many here have been involved or have completed a systematic study of Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti Shastri? So I encourage you, when there is, at least here in central New Jersey, there's a regular Bhagavad Gita discussion. As far as I understand, it's gone up to chapter 15. But, Vilas Manjari was sharing just yesterday in the car how much she's benefited from the systematic study of Bhagavad Gita. She had read Bhagavad Gita several times before, but the systematic study has made things so much clearer. And, the effort that we need to make in order to engage properly with our work in a spirit of detachment, and this karma yoga principle, it's an effort from our side to detach from material and attach to Krishna. And it's repeated and repeated so many times, and it's from different angles of vision, but the same theme is there. So it becomes very clear how we should live our lives and why we should live our lives the way that follower of Krishna lives their life. It's really easy to be complacent. When there's some calamity, then we sit straight. We're paying attention. We're like, antennas up and receivers on, and we want to know what's going on here and how to act, and then the crisis or calamity subsides, and we become complacent again. Or if it doesn't even have to be the complacency thing, we strive and we go up a bit, and then short while passes and we're back down again. The complacency, that it's a tendency. Spiritually lazy. And, not just materially lazy, but spiritually lazy. And it's a problem, because it brings then material enthusiasm, or at least, overly attending to prospering in ways that the world thinks is good to prosper. It doesn't have to be just money. It can be other things and other things and other things. How people regard us, or whatever, anything. Learn to play harmonium nicely, because people will pat you on the back and say, "Wow, you're a good harmonium player." Hey, I got some perks. I got some pats on the back. Or, you play some nice riffs on the mridanga, and, good, let's get together and play some. So, in different ways, it's certainly possible. It's more than possible. It's quite common to engage in the process of bhakti where there's a fruitive intention or a liberationist intention. And the teaching is neither one, please. And if you take away those two things, what's left? From the material side, there's not, you don't have something left. You have the spiritual. And so how to stay fixed in the spiritual? You have to let go of the material, but then you also have to take shelter of the spiritual. And the spiritual has the power to result in detachment from material and in speculation, speculative knowledge, theoretically understanding things. It has a potency. We have to stay with both the do's and the don'ts on the material side and the cultivation of bhakti on the spiritual side. But what we're hearing in the concluding statement of this little section is those that have achieved that position, they don't have the obligation to do this and don't do that. They may do this and they may not do that. But they're not governed by those like training wheels. They can go freely. And because the purpose of those training wheels is achieved, their mind is with Krishna. So they don't, because their mind is with Krishna, they don't do unlawful things or unwholesome things or detrimental things. They don't do those things. They do that which is pleasing to Krishna because that's the spontaneous platform. But they're not bound by the rope of regulation. They're free to roam here and there, and they use that freedom properly, not just wisely. But that's the stage of a pure devotee. Here's a little example comes to mind. When Srila Prabhupada was visiting in New York, when I was at the temple commander and Sankirtan leader, when Prabhupada came to visit, there were like 150 devotees in the temple. And the building that we lived in was a double brownstone, kind of like here you call them townhouses, I guess. But it was brownstone because it was brownstone. The cladding was not just something you stick on, it was, really thick stone, brownstone, very old buildings. So it was a double brownstone. And the temple room, as you're looking from the outside, the temple room was on this side, and then the back side was the pujari room. And then on Prabhupada's side, the ground floor, the same space that was the temple room, was Prabhupada's sitting room, where he had harmonium and would receive guests and so forth. And then the back side was his quarters. And then in a little closet was his servant's room. I mean, literally it was a closet, big closet, but. And then directly below Prabhupada's quarters was the kitchen. So he had this habit to keep everybody on their toes. From time to time, he'd go and inspect. So he had a stairway. We could go upstairs and just walk right into the ashram and look around and see what it looked like, right in the middle of the day. And sometimes there was a little stairway and you would go downstairs and enter into the kitchen. So he knew about cooking, as you know. He taught the cooks how to cook. And he knew when the peak of messiness in the kitchen would likely take place just before the Rajbhog offering. The Rajbhog offering normally would go up to the deities just before noon. So he would come down. He did this twice. Down the stairs, unannounced. No one, no warning. But, purposely, surprise. He came down the stairs, walked into the kitchen at around 11:40. Looked around, walked all around there's a big stainless steel cutting surface table. And, would look at everything and wipe his fingers on the counter and show, whether it was clean or not. Look in this pot sink and see what it looked like in the pot sink. Look at everybody. Because he was, he was very clear. He wanted us to be very clean. As you're cooking, not afterwards, it's a big mess, you come clean up. So then he went over to the stove. And he took something, I don't know what that something was. He took something from one of the pots, held it up in the air, and popped it in his mouth. And looked at everyone and said, I can do this and you cannot. Smiled and walked. Now, he wasn't doing that because he wanted to be an enjoyer. He was doing it for a purpose of instruction. We're to follow vidhis, and he's not obliged. Now, he did that for teaching a lesson. What's the position of the perfected soul? It was going to be offered to him anyway, so he offered it in advance. That's what's being said in text 32. So this is, these verses 29 through 32. Let me go a little bit further. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary, he goes through the meanings of all the 28 qualities, etc. A person desires to make his associates like himself. He first teaches them karma, Mishra Bhakti, first persons become nishkam and perform karma mishra bhakti without material desires. He quotes a verse, the yogi should not give up his work, but he is abandoned by the work. Sridhar Swami quotes this in his Gita commentary, noting it is stated by Vashishta. A person desires to, so a starting point, Prabhupada did not encourage, we should not encourage people following Prabhupada, just give up your work, but work in the spirit of devotion. So karma mishra bhakti. Now in the beginning of karma mishra bhakti, people are doing their work because they like the fruits, but they know the fruits are going to implicate them in unwanted karma, so do your work and offer fruits to Krishna. Karma Mishra Bhakti. That's the starting point for most people. And then gradually, so it's sakkama, with desire. Then comes nishkama. I do because it's just, I want to please Krishna. Nishkam Karma Yoga, or Nishkam Karma Mishra Bhakti. The yogi should not give up his work, but he is abandoned by the work, which is an interesting way of saying. He's detaching himself from the fruits of the work. He's abandoned by the work. So there's a distinction between the worker and the work. And the work is for Krishna, and I'm learning to become his servant. That's the understanding. Thus, when he reaches the state of becoming disinterested in karma, he'll give up karma in a natural way and practice jnana mishra bhakti. When bhakti becomes strong, in that stage's maturity, and one gives up jnana because of disinterest, one becomes what is called Atmarama Bhakta, or Shanta Bhakta. Now this is a little technical. This is Vishwanath. Where is this description of bhakti? Because that's what Krishna is doing with Uddhava. What are the stages? And there are stages. And it's not like, there's this bucket, and then you move from this bucket to that bucket, and then you're from that bucket to the next one. but it's gradual, kind of like a growing of a plant. And if you've done any gardening, you start with a seed and you sprout the seed and you plant the little sprouted seed and it grows and grows. And there's stages and you can describe those stages. Similarly, there's stages of bhakti. And it's maturing. And as the maturing, there's less interest in gyan. Like, gathering information. Our modern education system trains us up in gathering information and information processing, and then you say it back and you get an A in your exam and you get awarded. You get into a good school and you get into a good job and you live happily, materially, because you're good at information processing. But there's a stage that's far beyond that. But in bhakti, the stage that's beyond that, you're just interested in serving Krishna. It doesn't start there. I'm interested and I like to do such and such things. Then you do such and such things. You enjoy doing such and such things. Oh, and I'm supposed to offer the fruit to Krishna, so he's in there somewhere. Or I cultivate putting Krishna in there somewhere. But as that detachment from the spirit of trying to be the enjoyer of those activities and the fruits of those activities subsides, knowledge rises. When one surpasses the stage of gathering knowledge, then it's what you're left with is the mature stage of bhakti. It's just pleasing Krishna. Such a person has no interest in gyan. There's another verse where he speaks this, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It is also said, Shukadev Goswami, son of Vyasadeva, was not only transcendently powerful, he was also very dear to the devotees. Thus, he underwent the study of the great narration, Srimad Bhagavatam. So he had no interest in material. He was very pleasing to the devotees, but he still wanted to have this relationship with Krishna stronger and stronger and stronger. He had no interest in material things, but he wanted his relationship with Krishna to become stronger and stronger. And so he carefully studied Srimad Bhagavatam. It's right in the Bhagavatam. Last, verse 32 describes the devotee practicing pure bhakti. It has been said that one who does not give up dharma is the best. But he who gives up all dharmas completely because of faith in bhakti, to me, is the best. But does he give up dharma because of ignorance or atheism? No. Understanding the good points in performing dharma, such as purification of existence, and also understanding the bad points with firm faith that all things are perfected by bhakti, to me, he gives up those dharmas. That is the meaning given by Sridhar Swami. A person of lower qualification will worship the Lord without giving up dharma, but the best devotee, however, worships the Lord while giving up all dharmas. The person who develops all the qualities, starting with compassion, as mentioned above, is considered the best, sattamaha. Doubt. Wait a minute, but the last sentence, which indicates the best devotee, does not include the qualities previously mentioned. How can a person without those qualities be considered the best? Answer. One should not worry that the person who performs only bhakti does not possess those qualities, for it is said, he possesses all those qualities. He's just not striving to get this and to get that and get the other thing, because materially speaking, when we're striving to get this or that or the other thing, there's a fruitive intention involved. I do this to get that. When one is a pure devotee, those qualities come, but also once the essence is this. When that spirit of wanting to please Krishna has matured, then you want to go before Krishna and Krishna smiles. And you know what makes Krishna smile. And so you want those things because it makes Krishna smile. Now, where do those good qualities come from? They come from Krishna. He has a big warehouse, a good quality warehouse, and he decorates his devotees with good qualities. And devotee comes before Krishna and he smiles. And the devotee thinks, wow, Krishna is smiling. And it's the reciprocation because those qualities are Krishna's from Krishna. When the devotee just wants to please Krishna. And Krishna wants to see the devotee decorated with nice qualities, which he's glad to do, provided they want to please him. And then he decorates them. It's a relationship. Last paragraph. He who reaches the highest stage is the best, since he becomes endowed with all good qualities while destroying all bad qualities. But even without reaching the perfect stage, that is, not having all good qualities, the devotee at the stage of sadhana should also be considered the best. He is better than the previously mentioned devotees because from the beginning he has accepted pure bhakti. So now what does that mean? It means, the I'm not there yet category, which is all of us. We're not there at the stage of pure devotion yet, but we've accepted that's the goal. And we're given a picture, this is what the goal looks like. So I'm not there yet, but I know what the goal is, and I've accepted that's the goal. So that person is the best. Because there are some persons that don't, either A or B, they don't accept that that's the goal and what the goal looks like. I mean, here's two examples. Key examples. The non-violent people. I was just hearing Prabhupada in a recording saying this morning, Gandhi was on the material platform. He was very clear. Why did he? What was his intention? Getting the British out. It's material. I mean, he saw it as service to his countrymen to get freedom from the British rule, and that was what he saw in Bhagavad Gita, a non-violent approach to get what you want. Anyway, that's an oversimplification, but that's what Prabhupada was saying. And then supposing that stage is passed because he wasn't a jnani. He didn't have proper knowledge of the scripture. Although he studied Bhagavad Gita, he didn't have proper knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. He didn't know what the purpose of Bhagavad Gita was. We're in the evening, we're discussing chapter 15. It's very clear what the purpose of Bhagavad Gita is, the purpose of all the Vedas. He didn't know the Vedas, but he was a Mahatma. But he wasn't a real Mahatma according to Bhagavad Gita. According to Bhagavad Gita, Mahatmanas tamam partha daivim prakritimashata. He was on the material platform, wanting, getting the British out. Then above that is the Jnani. And the Jnani knows all these temporary and limited and temporary activities. They're not satisfying. They're not the mission of life. To know who I am on the spiritual plane, that's life's mission. So they go for cultivation of knowledge. But that's not the teaching of Bhagavad Gita per se either. There is certainly knowledge, and there is certainly detached work. But what's the purpose of that knowledge and detached work? It's the obstacle of connecting with bhakti exclusively is to be removed. And when connection with bhakti exclusively is reached, that's the perfect. But supposing you're not there yet, that's the final message. That person is also best because they accept the principle. So, Prabhus, you're the best, even though you're not there yet. And there's better than best, and that's the pure devotee. But, you're also the best because you accept that principle. And there's degrees of accepting that principle, or there's degrees of applying that principle in life. And, where somebody may be here, somebody may be there, somebody may be there. But accepting the principle and striving, continuing to strive to cultivate that principle, that's good. That can keep going. Step by step, keep going towards the goal. So we're about halfway through chapter 11. We're getting introduced to devotional service by Krishna. Let's see if there's some discussion.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. We are listening to classes every day. One time Vrindavan pastimes, one time Mahaprabhu's pastimes, the Acharya's love for the process of bhakti. While listening, it is very, very purificatory and pleasure giving. But later, after sometime, we go back to the normal life process of regular chanting early in the morning, then temple services, family. In that regular processes, are we anyway forgetting?
That way what?
In that regular processes, are we anyway forgetting this Krishnaika Sharanam? I'm talking to myself again.
Well, forgetting is... is it a 0 or is it a 1 or is it a 2 instead of an 8, or it's getting covered but not forgotten. Covered but not forgotten.
Practically to grow in Krishna consciousness, how to take some to-go message, take-home message and cultivate according to scriptures, not like regular process of 4 regulative principles, chanting, temple service. Other than that, how to acquire something from this Acharya's mood and then take home and then...
Well, the very fact that you're asking the question is the answer. That is to say, when there's an eagerness to take, you're using your phrase, take something home, when you're eager like that, there will be something that you hear that resonates, makes sense, and then comes, since you've asked the question, that is, I want to take it home, that is, I want to apply it, then you apply it because you want to. You apply it because you want to. There's another saying the same thing another way. There are free will choices at every moment, and we're making choices to do this or to do that or something else. So the very desire to apply oneself to the process of bhakti, within that desire is the answer. Then you apply and stay with it. And if that desire is not so strong, then you won't. Not you, but any one of us won't. We'll hear and we'll mechanically do, at least for some time, and then get distracted again. So the conditioning force is there. The bhakti force is the antidote to the conditioning force. And it starts with the desire to involve oneself in service to Krishna and improve it. So it's a spark, and you fan the spark, and it becomes more than a spark. You keep fanning. But the question that you asked was where it goes to the next step. I want to go to the next step. It starts with the desire to do so. And hearing. The hearing is the fanning of the spark.
If no one has, we have few questions online.
Oh, there's right behind you. There's one.
Okay. Hare Krishna. I think mine is more or less the same question as Srimati Mataji's. But I guess my question is, how can we cultivate, nurture, and sustain a childlike wonder when it comes to bhakti and Lord Krishna's pastimes while also being responsible?
Well, these I've been responding to the how-to questions in 2 words: sadhu sangha, and then you unpack sadhu sangha, and you have the answer. But you keep the association of those who are sadhu-like or sadhu, and through sadhu sangha, the childlike innocence and inquisitiveness doesn't fade. It doesn't become jaded or complacent. It becomes, it stays warm or energized. And go apart from sadhu sangha, and it's like the spark that leaves the fire, it can become cold. So bring the spark back into the vicinity of the fire, it becomes a flame again. So sadhu sangha, and it's, again, unpacking it and repacking it in different ways. But that's a simple solution or remedy, recommendation, sadhu sangha, and do with sadhus what sadhus do, and that enthusiasm, etc., will continue. Okay, let's go online.
This message is from Sucharita Devi Dasi. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, if you so wish, can you please elaborate more on how to offer fruit of work to Krishna?
Well, there's external and there's internal. The internal is doesn't require any external, doesn't require necessarily external change. Let's say that you take your paycheck, and when the paycheck comes in, you hold it to your head and understand this belongs to Krishna. You put it in a bank account that has your name on it, but you know that bank account belongs to Krishna. And as you're spending money from the bank account, you're paying your electric bill and paying your rent or mortgage and your car payments or whatever else you pay for. This is for Krishna. And so it's the consciousness behind the activity that makes the difference. And then there's some balance at the end. And then the balance belongs to Krishna. So how is Krishna's balance to be utilized? And then, whatever formula you use for taking care of the balance, for saving for the children's education and something, and giving in charity, and it's all in relation to Krishna's service. You keep Krishna at the center internally, and then you offer and thereby you're offering the fruit to Krishna. Now, it's easy to forget that and just do it mechanically. So, the non-mechanical is the explanation of how to offer the fruits to Krishna. But then there's softer fruits, just like this mentioned before, of becoming proficient at mridanga or harmonium and singing or cooking or thising or thating. And the fruit goes to Krishna. It's just like, let's just say, I'm preparing for giving a class. So I can see it as, this way, that way, the other way, but in a manner of, so some of you or all of you are likely at some point in time be called upon to give a class. So how do you offer the fruit to Krishna? And it can be something simple. It could be just reading and discussing something. But, it's for Krishna. So that the preparing and the executing of the service is for Krishna. And there may be some appreciation. Oh, you cooked a nice feast. Or, something. You led a nice kirtan or something. The festival was organized. The deity dressing was done very nicely. You made very nice garlands or, something. Or the other way around. You botched up the garlands. There was, so the offering the fruit to Krishna is, he is meant to be the enjoyer, and you're doing something that you like doing. That's why you're doing it, because you like doing it. But it's meant for Krishna's pleasure. So you cultivate that consciousness. The fruit, the result, goes to Krishna. So those are just some simple examples, but it's there will be some things that will change if it's not part of prescribed duties or theistic conduct. Those things drop. And if there's things that are meant for Krishna's pleasure, then you're thinking in those terms. It belongs to Krishna. Here you are. This is for you. And that if any praise is for you and any fault, I have to correct it. I'll take responsibility for the faults. That's offering the fruits to Krishna. Next.
Thank you. This is from Amara Mataji. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. When we take service in spirit of pleasing Guru and Krishna, we are thinking of constant improvement in those services. Will this get us beyond Jnana and Karma Mishra Bhakti?
With Krishna's favor, sure.
Similar questions, actually 2 questions from Snehavali Mataji. It's a bit long, I'll read through. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, this is regarding Jnana Mishra Bhakti. In VCT summary, it is said when bhakti becomes strong in that stage, maturity in that stage is maturity, and one gives up jnana because of disinterest. One becomes what is called an Atmarama Bhakta or Shanta Bhakta. Similarly, in Krishna book, in chapter 15, it is mentioned that impersonalists who had impersonal view have achieved the position of trees in Vrindavan.
Of trees.
So I have 2 questions. One is, in previous verses in Uddhava Gita, we heard that Jnana Mishra Bhakti is under the potency of Maya. I would like to know how under the potency of Maya one can achieve the Shanta Bhakti stage.
We discussed this before, and maybe you weren't involved in that discussion. What she's referring to, this the apparent contradiction question, is from Uddhava Gita, chapter 10, we hear, or chapter, I'm not sure, I can't remember which, chapter 10 or chapter 11. In Uddhava Gita, Krishna says, trying to remember chapter 10 or 11. Krishna says that the Nitya Siddha and Nitya Baddha idea, it has to do with the covering of the soul, not the soul. Meaning, the Maya Shakti, this is for those that were not part of that discussion. Maya Shakti has two parts, Vidya and Avidya. Vidya causes liberation, Avidya causes ignorance, but the soul is the soul is not covered, the soul is pure. Or the soul is not either not becoming liberated or becoming conditioned, but the soul is always pure. So, now back to Snehavali. That description of the Vidya potency being part of Maya Shakti is not the same as the knowledge potency that comes from the internal potency or Antaranga Shakti, different than Maya Shakti. I'll say it again. The spiritual potency or internal potency also has knowledge. The material potency also has knowledge and illusion. But that knowledge of this material potency is a covering or a upadhi or a designation of the pure soul. But the pure soul, in contact with the spiritual potency, is awakened to the innate knowledge of the soul. It's like the spark, when you fan the spark and then it becomes a flame. It's of that which is of the soul and that which is of the internal potency has knowledge capacity, but it's not a covering anymore. The covering is in the material side. So her question is, how can one who is covered and through the covering exercise become a perfected soul? You can't. The terminology has two different applications, one of the spiritual position and the other of the material position. And so don't mix the two. Although the terminology may seem to be quite similar, if not the same. They're not the same, although they are similar. Those that have not been part of this prior discussion may find what I just said, or the question itself, be confusing. You confused? A little bit? I'll try to say it in simple language. Her question is, how can somebody who is conditioned by that process of being conditioned by the Jnana Shakti, which is part of Maya Shakti, be a liberated person? How can through Maya Shakti one can be liberated? And the answer is that Jnana Shakti of the soul is pure, and when the soul connects with the internal potency, that's how the soul becomes fully, perfected being. Conversely, if one does lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of study of the scripture, that's not the same as connecting with the internal potency. You can have lots of Jnana Shakti and much less amount of Ajnana or Avidya Shakti. But it's relative. It's like the mode of goodness still has passion and ignorance. Then there's pure goodness. So the word goodness is there in both places. Goodness and pure goodness. So the perfected soul is situated in pure goodness. In that pure goodness, there's knowledge, jnana or vidya, but it's pure.
Here's the second question. Secondly, can this be said that Jnana Mishra Bhakti has two divisions? One is philosophical speculators and other Brahmavadis, and these Brahmavadis achieve the Shanta Bhakti stage.
I thought you were involved with that discussion. We discussed this also because the very same language came up before. And the Shanta Bhakta in this case is not meaning the trees in Vrindavan. It's meaning, in this case, it's meaning the stage of neutrality, where the mood and the activities of service haven't begun. Just neutrality, no longer involved. Like Shukadeva Goswami before he heard the topics of Krishna, he was an Atmarama. He wasn't doing any service. He was just Atmarama in this stage of neutrality. And then when he heard about Krishna, he's ready. I'm moving from this neutrality stage to the service stage. Attracted by Krishna. I want to hear more about Krishna, study about Krishna, speak about Krishna, 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 Krishna. Moving from the neutrality stage or the Atmarama or Shanta stage. That's what that term means in that particular case. It's not the same as Shanta Rasa. It's Shanta Bhakti. And that, I don't think it's helpful to go into the topic further.
That's it, Naresh.
Okay. We're done. Yes, Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
jai.
Even